talk about photometrics and Vectorworks and how Vectorworks can help us make some of those decisions or seek out some of the information that we're going to need to help us do more functionality within Vectorworks Spotlight. So as you see here in this drawing, I have laid out some focus points. We've talked in class about how to use the focus point tool and how to drop those in. I did a rough calculation for this set just as some general areas. I made sure to have an odd number of areas so that we always have an area that falls on center. As you see, I chose not to have center fall on center line of the drawing. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. Those are kind of questions that we would investigate in a Lighting 1 class, and we don't really need to talk about here, except to say that these are pretty evenly distributed in a grid pattern. Excuse me, that grid pattern becomes 5 foot 7 inches, deviating outward from the center focus point. That's up and down stage and left and right. So now what I'm going to do is go in here and add in some system pipes for what the electrics would be in this drawing if this wasn't a dead hung grid that is actually over this set in the particular file and drawing that we are working in. So I'm over here. I make sure that my lighting layer is visible, and I also have the check mark because I want to work in this layer. I have my scenery layer here grayed out so that I can see the scenery as a reference point above. And I'm going to start by going over here to my rigging and braceworks tool set. And then I'm going to come up here to my lighting pipe tool in the tool set. And I'm going to double click on that lighting pipe tool. And this object preferences dialog box is going to pop up and ask me some preferences I have about how I am drawing this line or what it needs to look like. So I'm just going to say that the insertion point is to the left. The total pipe length, I don't know. We're just going to base it on what the pipe grid is above, and I'll show you how to reference that in a moment. I'm going to leave these blank. A lot of default settings can stay here. I want to draw the pipe, the line type. I just want a single line. You could do a double line if you want. I prefer not to because I like to drop the light directly on the line and not look for a little loci or locus point that it provides between those two lines. The diameter is a 2-inch pipe. That's the outer diameter of the pipe. I couldn't tell you what the outer diameter of a Schedule 40 1.5-inch pipe is, but I'm going to take Vectorworks' word for it that it's 2 inches, and that's fine. That would really only change our trim in the air by like a 1/4 inch, which is going to be very negligible. So I'm going to leave some of these default settings in here until I get down to tick marks. I want to display the tick marks. You can also have loci or tick marks and loci or snaps only or nothing. We will see those when we draw the line, but those tick marks are on 1 foot 6-inch centers or 18-inch centers, which is a common spacing for lighting instruments. And then there are going to be snap intervals on that line every 6 inches. So I can change that if I would like, but that's basically saying even between those 18-inch or 1 foot 6-inch benchmarks, there's going to be reference points every 6 inches. So I want the origin of my lighting pipe to start on center. I want it to be a line. And then these are some other questions: the size of that line, the gap length between where the tick mark is and where the line restarts. These are all things that this is the size of the tick mark, and these are all just really kind of finicky or specified preferences that you may have individually. There's nothing really saying in a drafting standard what this has to be, as long as it's clear. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to just kind of ignore all of this where we are, except it says lighting pipe class. We're just going to leave it there because we're actually going to drop this stuff in a lighting positions class, which I'll show you in a moment. So we click OK. Now we have the settings for our lighting pipe tool, and I want to come over here into my navigation for design, and it's in layers right now, and I'm going to pop over to classes, and I'm going to search for pipe grid, which I already know in this drawing is what I want to find. But here's the pipe grid, and I'm just going to turn that piece on, and now you can see the grid that exists in this theater over the stage. So what I want to do is go ahead and go in here, and I'm going to sketch in a number of line sets moving upstage that reference the grid here. So this most downstage, I'm going to reference these 2 points and snap in the center, so I make sure I'm on center of everything. I'm going to bring it all the way over here to this end. I'm going to reference those points, and if I can get it to drop. Here we go. I had to zoom in a little farther. I'm going to click once and click again to terminate that line. And now you see that there is a red line there with those tick marks. Look, 1 inch gap here. These are 2 inch tick marks like those settings I told you about at the bottom and showed you. So now I'm going to go in and just do the rest of these pipes left and right the rest of the way upstage. So I'll go over here, grab this one, and I can do this. I'm going to drop that one in. And another one. Actually, I could just start and go the other way on this one if I really wanted to. There. And I'm going to stop there because I'm only going to do as many lights as we have focus points. So now I have these cross pipes in there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here to the grid, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. And now I want to make sure that we are working in this class that I have created. So I created a class. You know how to create a class. And here we want to work in Alex positions. So I'm going to go ahead and put the check mark there. We should have already been working there, but this is okay for the moment. What I'm going to do is grab my selector tool, hold down the shift key, and select each of these pipes that I just drew, and go over here to my object info and see class. Those lines are sitting in the focus point class at the moment. So I just want to come down here into Alex and make sure that I put this into positions. So now it's in positions. You see up here, because of what I said we were working in over here, check mark by the lighting layer, check mark by the positions over here, and you see we have the same information reflected up here, which lets us know that we are working where we want to work at the moment. The next thing we need to do is take each of these and turn them into an electric. Right now, they are nothing. They are just a line. They are just a lighting pipe. So I'm going to select this first one, and I'm going to go up to the top to Spotlight, Lighting, and Convert to Hanging Position. And now I'm going to name this position. I could name this position 1 Electric, but because I like to keep the drawing nice and tidy, I'm either just going to do 1E or 1 Elec. But I'm going to go ahead and just do 1E because I prefer my paperwork to be as tidy as possible. Just like that, it's going to ask me, hey, do you just want to use the geometry of this and call it the first electric and it would still function like a lighting pipe? It would be no different. Or do you want to create a symbol? So I'm going to say I want to create a symbol for the first electric, and then I'm going to create a symbol for each electric after that, even though they're identical. I could, however, if I really wanted to, I could draw one line, create a symbol, and just call it an overstage electric as the symbol. And I could drop that symbol in the drawing, and then I could tell that symbol in the object info panel that it is what its name is, and that name would be the first electric or the second electric, and so on and so forth. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab this next pipe. I'm going to do the same thing, lighting, convert to hanging position. I'm going to call this one the 2E. Okay, and I want to create the symbol. And then here, spotlight, lighting, convert to hanging position, 3E, click OK, create the symbol. And then I'm going to do this last one, spotlight, lighting, convert to hanging position, and I'm going to say the 4E. And I'm going to create that symbol. Now these are all created, but you will notice one thing on each of these is that their Z coordinate, how high they are off the ground, is 0 inches. In this particular theater, the trim of the grid is 14 feet, 0 inches. So now I just input that information, and each of these pipes lifted off the floor in the drawing by 14 feet. I think I just said inches, but I meant feet. You can see that if I go up here and I say I want to look at the right side of things, you should be able to see pipes that are not showing up, and I'm not sure why. Let's see if we can see it if we do a 3D flyover. There they are. You see those pipes are above the floor, 14 feet off the ground. So now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go ahead and go back to my top plan view, recenter myself up on the drawing, and I want to drop a light for each of these focus points. So I'm going to go to my resource manager, and I'm going to go ahead and, if I can fight this box for a moment, there we go. I'm going to look for a source for par. Now I have my source for pars up here, and I know at 14 feet by my own experience that I probably should start with a wide flood or an extra wide flood to kind of get that distance. I'm going to start with a wide flood. I'm going to right click on this, I'm going to import it, and then this import resource dialog box is going to pop up, and I'm going to say select destination folder. And here I have the drawing I'm currently working in, and I want to put it in the folder Instruments, and I click OK. Before I click, if you don't have this Instruments folder, that's okay. Just click on New Folder and follow the prompts, and you can create the folder to keep your resource manager organized. So I'm going to drop that in Instruments. I'm going to click OK. It should have gone there, but we're going to check. Here's the open file that we have going on right here, cat plans. I'm going to go to Instruments, and there somehow I have two source for wide floods, but I'm going to grab this first one. Often these symbols might have slight variations, and sometimes you have to dig into the data tags to figure out what is missing or what is there. And I'm trying to get this to, oh, come on. Well, maybe we can do it here. There we go. If you scroll down in this data tags, this tells you lighting device, it tells you what it's called, it's going to say stuff multiple times, that's just part of the programming. What kind of connector, its wattage is 575 watts, what kind of lamp it takes, the color temperature is 5,000 kelvins, the frame size, the beam angle, all of these things. There could be slight variations. You could pull a fixture that the native wattage of the fixture is 750 watts. So you need to pay attention to these parameters and make sure you're pulling a specific fixture when you're given an inventory of what fixtures you have. For this, that's not so important, but we're going to grab this light right here. It's going to say, hey, do you know double clicking a lighting device symbol will automatically activate the lighting device tool. I can't tell you how many times I have never clicked to never show this dialog box again. I've never clicked it. I just click OK and keep moving. So I'm going to drop my resource manager back off up there. And as you see, I have a light now connected to my cursor. But where am I working? Over here, I'm still in positions. So I want to get rid of that. And I'm going to look for instruments. Here we are. I want to make sure I click and work in there. It changed up here. Still have the light attached to my cursor. And now I want to go and look at, okay, how do I light each of these focus points? We don't need to get really crazy, but I'm going to go ahead and say, oh, it's a backlight, so I'm not going to do, I could do a straight down light over the focus point, or I could go up a line set and do a backlight, and that is probably similar to this angle here. But this angle would be a little steeper, and sometimes not everything is perfect. Those are things also we would talk about in lighting design. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and just drop the light on the closest pipe that would be a backlight position or a top light position. So see here, you can see that here's my tick mark, but as I move around, you see there's little red dots that pop up. Those are those other extra loci or reference points. So I'm just going to go to the closest one, which is this one right here by the number 1, and that's going to give me a really nice measurement, hopefully. We're going to look up here, and we're going to see that it is negative 13.25 inches from center, because our whole drawing is lined up with an origin point. So 0.25 inches, 12 divided by 4, that is at 13 feet 3 inches stage right from center. So I've put in that light, and now I'm going to continue to put in the next light. Here I see, here's my first little reference point, or I could put it right over here. I'm going to go ahead and stick it right on the tick mark, and then I point the light downstage, which is always an indicator that it's either a backlight or a downlight. And that matters when they hang the units. When the crew hangs the units on stage, they take that as a nod to what the orientation of the unit should be on the pipe very often. So now I'm going to look over here, and I'm trying to see where the, oh, there's a tick mark right there, right above the 3. I'm going to click here, drop this unit in. Now it's there. I'm going to go over to focus point 4, look over here, and what do I see? But this looks like the closest here, so I'm going to drop it there. There we go. And then I have one last focus point down here. This number 5, I'm going to look. Oh, it looks like it's pretty smack dab in the middle of those 2 points. So I'm just going to go over here to this one that it's referencing and down. And now I have those 5 lights across there. All right, I just pushed the X key, which brings my tool back to my selection tool. And now I need to assign each of these lights to a focus point. So I know they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across. So I'm going to grab this light, and I'm going to scroll down over here and look for where it says focus. And right here. And I'm going to say 1, enter. Then I'm going to click on the next light without moving this, and it's going to stay there. And I'm going to say this one's focus point 2. Click on the next one, go over here to focus 3. Go over to the next one, focus point 4. And go to the next one. This is going to be focus point 5. Now I'm going to hold down the shift key and select each of these lights, because I'm going to turn on their beam to see a representation of what it looks like. So I'm going to say just draw the beam, and now I'm going to show that beam at the focus point. When we drop those focus points, you should have seen that it asks a height. That height is default set to 5 foot 10 inches. You will always want to think about your cast before you let that default setting just be it. Because if you have someone extremely tall in your show, you should probably plan around that person to make sure their head never dips out of the light, because everything with light is a cone of light. So that's why we want things to overlap by half. Now, looking at this drawing, you see these are par fixtures. They have an oblong shape to the light. And what you see is right now, their bottle is what it's called, or the orientation of the oval. The bottle is up and down stage. So what we want to do is we want to rotate that just to make sure that these overlap the way we want them to overlap. So I'm over here in the object info pane, and I'm scrolling down to find where we rotate the whole bottle, the field of light. And I am not finding it. These are shutters. These lights don't have shutters, so we don't need to mess with these. Draw beam, zoom. And I'm not finding it. Let's slide back down here and draw beam. Oh, here we are. Lamp rotation angle. I just missed it. So now I'm going to say I want them to turn 90 degrees, so I'm just going to put a 90 in there and hit enter. And now they have all turned. In a perfect world, these beams do not overlap by half. We would want the edge of this beam to come all the way over to the center of this beam over here. Now, these cross enough at the height in the air, because we are showing the beam at the focus point. So these are how much the beams are converging at 5 feet 10 inches in the air. So one of the things I can do is, instead of showing the beam at the focus point, I can ask to see the beam at the fall off point, which would be where that beam hits solid scenery. So when I click on that, now, oh look, these beams overlap by a little more than half. Therefore, left to right, these beams are probably good. So now, to save myself time with these beams turned on, I'm going to go ahead and just Control C on my MacBook to copy those units. I'm going to click down here, down in Nowhere, and Control V, because I'm going to drop those. And you see they're automatically going to shoot their focus points at the focus point they've already been told that they go to. So while this looks a little messy, I'm going to grab the center of the center fixture, and I'm going to go up here. This pipe is not directly over the 8, so I'm going to go ahead and reference the center of that 8 and pull up here and say right there is where that needs to go, lined up with the 8. And now I need to reassign the focus points so that they're correct. So we had 1 through 5 down low, so we're going to start up here with the number 6. I'm going to come over here in my object info panel and look for the focus input again. I passed it up once again. There it is. So this one is going to be 6. This one is going to be 7. This one is going to be 8. This one is going to be 9. And this one is going to be 10. And now I'm going to go back and select all these again, because as you can see, their rotation is not how we want it either. So I'm going to go up here and find again that lamp rotation that I lost last time. here, this says lamp rotation 90. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 0, and looky there. Now, one thing you can tell is these backlights are being shown. Let's make sure where they're being shown at their fall off point. So their fall off point overlaps by more than half. That's okay. So now we know they overlap with the units downstage. So now we know we have coverage that is consistent from left to right and up and down stage for those two ranks of focus points. So what you will do next is insert the lights up here and send those to the next rank of focus points to continue on making sure that all your light marries together the way it needs to. Now, we chose a wide flood par and we see that it works here. However, if we chose a different light, it would show us the representation of that light's beam. And if it didn't work, if it didn't overlap by the appropriate amount, then we would choose another fixture that was more appropriate for our application. So this is how we get Vectorworks to answer these questions. I can show you these 5 lights if I wanted to change all 5 lights at once because, hey, I need a different unit. This doesn't work. I could go to Spotlight, replace lighting device, or sorry, lighting, and then replace lighting devices. And then it's going to give me a dialog box that is going to allow me to select what other unit I want. I haven't pulled any other units into my resource browser, so I'm just going to pull one while we're here now. I'm going to go back to the source for par, and I'm going to say, what if they were all medium floods? So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to find the medium flood that I want. ETC source for par MFL. There we go. Here it is. I'm going to right click. Oh, no. Right. Why? Oh, I can't import from here. Fine. I'm going to double click this lighting unit. It puts it there. And I click OK. And because everything's turned on, it's going to think for a second. And it's going to repoint those lights and act like I have a different lens in them. And you see here that if this is how much they overlap at the fall off point, what you can probably tell, and I'm going to draw these beams as a 3D solid, so hopefully we can see the difference when we tip up and look at these things. But when you look at the height, as you see, if we were to line this up as a specific front view, what we see here is that this representation is what our downstage rank, that's where the beams cross in the air. So as long as everyone is shorter than whatever this crossing point is here, they can move through this light seamlessly. However, you see with the medium flood, all of a sudden our crossing point is way down here. And what that means is if I grabbed a tape measure tool and I come over here like, oh, this is roughly where the beams cross, I'm going to click here and go straight down. And I'm just going to rough this in. That's not perfect, but that means nobody in the show could be taller than approximately 3 feet 2 inches tall. Hence why we need to use the wide flood par. So now if we see this 3D solids, I'm going to go back and do the same thing. I'm going to go to Spotlight, Lighting, Replace Lighting Devices. Those are the ones that are selected. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to what I have populated in my drawing already, and I'm going to change them to wide floods. Double click, click OK. It's going to think for a second, re-render those beams, and there you go. And now we have seamless light that someone can walk through. So this is the easiest way. Before we had computer programs that would do this, we would have to grab an elevation, draw the pipe at the height that we thought it should go, and then draw in the lights, and then make the light beam emerge from that particular unit, and then do these multiple drawings to figure out the math that's involved in the triangle you need to draw, and then making sure that the spacing of focus points and units that light things are at their appropriate spacing. There are other ways to solve the spacing problem or to use a more narrow fixture, and there are reasons that you would want to use a more narrow fixture and change your application slightly. Again, those are things that we would talk about in lighting design, in lighting 1, and not necessarily in this class. We're just worried about, we know how to get Vectorworks to help us solve these problems. And that is kind of a quick look at photometrics and Vectorworks as far as calculating beam size. Vectorworks does have the ability to calculate lumens and lux and to tell you the reflectivity or how much light you're seeing or how much light is falling on a surface. We're not going to do that here. Those are helpful calculations in lighting design, but we don't really need to worry about that here.